Morning, and welcome to Thought Your Woke No Speed Limit Podcast. I'm sorry I'm coming from a different location right now. This is kind of like an emergency kind of situation. I didn't have time to set up everything. Everybody's been talking about Israel. Everybody's been talking about what's going on in the Middle East. There's a couple of things I want to bring up, and I'll start with Israel. Of course, you know that late Saturday, early Sunday morning, Iran launched like 300 drones and ballistic missiles at Israel. 99% of them were shot down by either Jordan, believe it or not, the United States, Israel, Great Britain, and probably France. All the forces that were in the particular area. So not very much damage was done, and I think the Iranians had warned, since they had been warning for days that they were going to do it. They knew exactly what was going to happen. It wasn't like when they launched the missiles against and people don't think about that Pakistan. They've hit in recent months. They've hit Pakistan with missiles, or had their Houthi rebels in the Gulf try to attack shipping. They've launched missiles at military bases. I think it was like 2 months ago, that 3 American soldiers died, and American responded to that. So here's what I want to say about the whole situation. What sparked the whole thing was Israel deciding to attack the Iranian embassy, or part of the Iranian embassy in Syria. Some people are saying, well, it really wasn't part of the embassy. It was a building next to the embassy, so they didn't attack the embassy. Either way, it was attached to the embassy, and as far as I know, it was part of that compound. Now, technically, that is a violation of international law, international code of conduct, to destroy that. And it's something about Israel. Israel has defied the UN. It still occupies the West Bank. And we're going to talk about what's going on with the whole war in Gaza. It has defied every ruling against the idea of having that particular conflict. And, like I said, if you watch my TikTok video, Biden should have tied any kind of funding to that war to some kind of agreement, that says you wouldn't do certain things. But it's too late now. 30,000 people have died there. The reason I'm going to bring that up again later on, because there's some other conflicts I want to talk about as well. But here's the thing with this whole conflict. Everybody's worried about a regional war. Jordan has warned, Iran warned Jordan after this conflict, saying that if they shoot down their missiles, they too could get an attack against their shores. And that they could rain missiles down. That's been Iran's way of attacking their opponents, is missiles. They don't really want to get in a long, protracted ground war or even an air war. Actually, they don't mind launching missiles at anybody, but they don't want to get in a protracted war. So I think Iran's gamble was, if we attack Israel with this missile attack, we'll send a message and they won't attack back. Here's my problem with Israel. Israel is on 10 right now. It ain't even emotional. Netanyahu, who is basically the driver of this, he's an ultra-conservative Israeli who some people say wants to become a pseudo-dictator in the country, because he's trying to get rid of the Supreme Court, which they say technically doesn't have any authority, but has been like a place to settle certain disagreements in the country. He tried to get rid of the Supreme Court, or take control of anything they do to overrule that Supreme Court. We talk about the separation of powers here in our country, where we have a judicial, a legislative, and an executive branch. Israel's a little bit different, and he was trying to assume control of the courts in a way by being able to overrule anything that they put forth. Anyway, that's Netanyahu in a nutshell. He's become a very unpopular person in Israel because of the things he's tried to do. But this war has kind of extended his life. The war with Hamas, that attack by Hamas extended his life. Then this war. But in the process of doing the war, he's become a very unpopular person, because the IDF has made some crucial mistakes, and I call war crimes, really. Attacking food food convoys, attacking people trying to get food at the convoys, killing hostages. They've done all of these things. IDF has failed to me at their job because they have not freed all the hostages. They failed to in ceasefires. Israel does not want a ceasefire at this point. They want to get rid of Hamas 100%. They say, oh, you're just giving them time to bunker down and build up their defenses, so it'll make it harder for it to get it. This conflict has caused like 15 to 30,000 Palestinian lives, and that's including non-combatants, and over 1,800 Israeli lives, and that includes 700 something Israeli combatants. So there's a lot of people who have lost their lives because of this war. And yes, I do get Hamas was the stimulus for that, but attacking Iran's embassy is like trying to widen the war unnecessary. I talked about all the players the other day. I talked about Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, ISIS. ISIS is not real on the side of Iran. They're their own thing. The Houthis down in Yemen. There are some other smaller organizations. There's several terrorists are out there. And like I said, Al-Qaeda is out there. Al-Qaeda is a Sunni organization. The Muslims only come together when it comes to fighting the West, for the most part. Islam, I said it's even like Christians and Catholics. Catholics and Protestants, they come together to fight against other things when necessary. But in this case, Iran is kind of on its own because it's been the conflict in Yemen has put it up against Saudi Arabia and Arab Emirates and all those other Arab countries. So it has not fared too well, other than being a regional bully. That's why they look like a regional bully. So that's what's been going on with that. So Iran seems like the bad guy. But my issue with the media is the media makes it sound like, well, Israel has a right to respond. Well, of course they have a right to respond. But the problem is you forget Iran was responding to what Israel did. Okay? So cooler heads need to prevail, but they won't. Israel right now, the War Council is meeting to decide how they're going to respond. And I got a feeling that they could do more damage to the Iranians than the Iranians could ever do to the Israelis, because who's going to fire back at it? Unless Russia decides, hey, let's fly a couple of planes over Iran and say, hey, if you fire anything at us and any of those get hit by us, you could be sparking a war. And I don't think the Russians would even do that at this point. But I will say this. The Russians like what's going on in the Middle East, because it's distracting the United States from the issue in Ukraine. And the war in Ukraine right now is not going that great because they're running low on ammunition. The Russians are just sending wave after wave of bodies because that's all that's happening. They send you wave after wave. That's how they attack. It's like this system where it's like I'm going to throw bodies at. They have 300,000 plus casualties, and I think poor Ukraine has 75,000 or so casualties. That's still a lot of casualties. A lot of people who are hurt, killed, or injured. I mean, they probably have 100,000 plus on the Russian side. They're dead, and maybe 40 to 50,000 dead on the Ukrainian side. It's a horrible war. Let's just put it that way. That's going on there. Again, the war in the Middle East, there's over 50,000 dead or 30 to 40,000 dead in Hamas, in Palestine, in Gaza. But it's not the only conflict in the world. See, the world's not even paying attention to what's happening in Sudan. That war has been going on for a year. There's 8.5 million people who have been displaced. They have nowhere to go. For a while, Egypt had their borders open. Some of the other countries had their border open. But as people start spilling over the border, they stop letting people in. And it's been hard, in the United States. Some of these people are down there at the border right now in Mexico trying to get in the United States. They can't get here. So there's 8.5 million displaced people right now from that country. So that conflict is going on. My whole thing with Israel is Israel can respond if they want to. If it's harsh enough, it can cause a regional conflict. I mean, America would be involved in that. Of course, that means less care about what's going on in Ukraine. My issue, as I said in TikTok, is that it doesn't matter which president is in office. A this would be a mess one way or the other because both presidents support, Trump. I'm saying Trump. Trump supports Israel wholeheartedly. He even supported Israel to the point where he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which was a huge mistake to me. That really sparked the conflict, I think, that happened with Hamas now. But at the same time, he totally supports, he would give Israel money without thinking twice about it. He wouldn't have a second thought about what he would do with this particular situation. So cooler heads have not prevailed because Netanyahu is not a cool head. His whole thing is, I can do whatever I want. We as Israel can do whatever we want in the Middle East. We're the good guys. We are the good guys. No, you are the Western-backed power in the West, in the Middle East. If it wasn't for that, you wouldn't be what you are now. And that's no offense to the Jewish people there, because I understand you needed a homeland, but so do those Palestinians. And they're not going to get absorbed into the other countries like some people in your country think. So getting back to the story at hand, it would behoove Israel to stop at this point, but the problem is who's got the bigger balls. It's always about who's got the bigger balls when it comes to these kind of things. Oh, you hit me, now I got to hit you back. Okay, well, then I hit you back, now I got to hit you back. We're going to keep hitting back till you can't hit back no more until I knock you out. That's the game that's played. Geopolitics is ridiculous right now. The world is a mess. It's a hot mess, especially in the Middle East. So let me get off the Middle East for a minute. I want to talk about OJ. He died this weekend. Man was an awesome football player. Early in his life, I liked OJ. I thought he was a pretty decent guy. He was on. I used to see him on sports shows and all those things. Then the whole murder thing happened. Nicole Brown, not Nicole, but Nicole Brown Simpson. And the Golden Kid, I was sitting on my couch. My sister was here, and we were watching the Lakers game. Then all of a sudden, the Lakers game went off TV. Here goes the white Bronco. And then they did the first picture-in-picture I've ever seen on TV. They did a picture-in-picture. They had the white Bronco up there in the corner, and they had the game up there in the corner, and the white Bronco on TV, and they were chasing OJ Simpson down. She was like, man, did he really do this? Man, daggone, OJ, you just destroyed your whole life. I couldn't even imagine the movie star / football player / sports analyst. Seemed like a cool guy. I didn't know about all the abuse that was going on in his relationships, but I lived through that whole OJ trial and everything. And yes, it was not too many years after the Rodney King incident, and we all knew that the LAPD wasn't on the up and up. So there was a lot of things that happened during the trial when it was obvious that the LAPD, regardless of what you think. So, of course, OJ got off on the murder because it was all circumstantial evidence. We found the gloves at his house. Anybody could have thrown those over the fence, by the way. I still think that to this day. I don't know if OJ did it. Maybe he had something to do with it. I don't know. I can't speculate on something that I have no idea about. He was convicted. He was found liable in the civil case for the murder of his ex-wife and the other young man. So he had to pay the Goldman family a whole bunch of money. And, he lost his Hall of Fame trophy or Heisman trophy, one of the two. They got their hands on all that stuff from him, his memorabilia and all of that. But at the same time, I said, there goes a black man tied to white people like chains. And it was part of me that said that, and I couldn't help myself. And I realized he did that to himself. In more ways than one, he did it to himself. He tied himself to white people too much. That's what happens in the football industry. You get all that money. You usually ain't gonna tie yourself to poor black people. I'm just saying, unless they're family. And he tied himself to white people a little too much. So it's kind of like I'm sad for what happened to him, to OJ, but at the same time, you know, wow. All I can say is wow. I'm sorry that he died. I pray for his family. I pray for his kids. Uh, I pray for all the other folks around him. Or they're not kids anymore; they're grown folks. But praying for his family and all that. Um, it's hard to really talk about the OJ thing, and my emotions are in different places. It's mixed with that. I grew up with that. Most of y'all didn't. I was in my 20s. I wasn't really growing up with that, but I remember it very, very well when it happened. Um, so I have mixed emotions with that particular individual, with OJ's life. I try to remember the good things about people, regardless of whether they were good or bad. So I remember like I said, he was a great candidate. I mean, he was a great football player, a decent actor, good sports analyst. Those are things I try to remember about him. I don't remember him for what he did to Nicole, if he did it. If he did, let's not say he did it. I don't remember those in that kind of way. I think it's sad that it happened. It kind of destroyed his life. And then he had the other incident where he ended up in jail, became a felon because he was trying to steal his own memorabilia back from the guy, and he assaulted the guy. So anyway, that's my show for the day. I've been here talking for a minute. Y'all can tell me what you think down in the comments. Y'all have a great and wonderful day, and peace.